Today is the first day so-called insiders are allowed to sell their Facebook stock, and man, oh man, did they sell. Shares falling to an all-time low after diving more than 6% today. It has lost nearly half its value since hitting the market just 3 months ago. And my next guest is looking at all this and saying, me, worry? He holds millions of dollars worth of Facebook stock. And get this, he is still buying. He is John Thomas Financial CEO, Tom Belesis. So you're not blinking, you're buying.
No, we're very confident in the over longer-term perspective of Facebook. I mean, let's call it how it is. Obviously, the company had a real tough time out of the gates when the IPO happened. And I think they've been getting lumped in with Groupon and Zynga's collapse in their stock prices and their businesses. You can't compare their business models with Facebook's.
But didn't Groupon come back from the initial insider selling wave, and is that what Facebook hopes for?
Yeah, I think as the selling subsides from what's happening now with the insider lockup up now and people taking some chips off the table, let's not forget, Neil, a lot of people are up a lot on Facebook, the original investors that got in.
So it's human nature for them to get out of there.
Absolutely. And
were you surprised by the number who did?
No, I wasn't. You know, we were expecting that it would be a big number because there are a lot of shares out there, but, you know, eventually as it dries up, I think people are going to look at the longer-term value with what Facebook looks to do in the mobile space. Now, let's talk about that for a second. You know, the mobile market is in the trillions. They haven't even tapped into that. They only did about $15 million in revenue in the mobile space for the quarter.
But why wouldn't that have been reflected in the stock already?
Because I think it's priced for perfection now. And I think as the valuation goes up because of the revenues, because they tap into that mobile space and they look at those 800 to 1 billion users they have and they monetize that, that's when I think you start seeing the real reward come in if you buy Facebook now.
Now, a lot of them essentially were given shares for free, the insiders, right? Originally.
Some of the founders, yes.
Yeah, so obviously it compels them, you know, whatever, the price, it's better than zero, right? So the question going forward is for those who bought it at the high and at the offering, whether they got to a point where they say, the hell with it, this is they're not going anywhere, I got to cut my losses and run.
Sure. You have a lot of people out there that trade on a short-term basis. Those are the people that would take that type of position.
Right.
And you have the people who have created a lot of wealth for their clients, taking a longer-term perspective, kind of looking past the forest, like a Warren Buffett. He'll look at companies and say, you know what, if they're down 20...
He's looking at this, right?
He's looking at it, plus a few other big names are looking at it. Maybe not at this price, but they're looking at it. And, you know, eventually when they step in, that'll kind of put a floor where the stock is now. And over longer-term perspectives with the mobile market and what they're doing, I mean, you can look back and see this company trade, you know, probably double, triple the valuation here over the next 3 to 5 years.
But are you worried? I mean, there seems to be a commonality to how do some of these tech horses come out the gate and then race the first lap and there was a consistency to Google
Sure.
and to Amazon, and they stabilized, and then they were off to the races. But the time for Facebook to do that, many argue, is limited, that in this truncated period it's got to perform and wow now, or in this fast time, people are going to pass it over.
You know what? That's a great point you bring up, Neil. And there was a lot of hype going into this IPO, and people wanted to buy Facebook. They didn't care at what price. They just wanted Facebook. Now the reality sets in, and now they see that, you know what, Facebook's hype has been subsided because now it's all about how much are they going to monetize their use and how much revenue.
Don't you think, though, Tommy, that the biggest thing they did wrong is when they were ratcheting up the price along the way, that they should have kept it, you know, you're an expert on this, but I mean, had you kept the price lower, rather than seed into this demand, you would have looked better anyway if the loss would have been less. And the run-up potential would have been more.
Very good point, Neil. I think that the valuation was a bit
I think they got too piggish.
They could have. And I think the valuation was a little too high for the current market at where we were at that point.
And could Zuckerberg have done more?
You know what? It's a good point you bring up.
And should he be doing more now?
I believe that if he steps in and accumulates more stock here, it'll give investors confidence that he's putting his money where his mouth is in his own company.
But he's not doing it.
Not yet, and you know what? He probably will. A lot of insiders do that, and you know what? When they do that, I think you'll see a turn.
But it's got to be a lot. It can't be a little bit. Sometimes when an insider does it, and they buy like Dunlap used to do that at Sunbeam. Remember that?
Yes.
I bought like $12 worth of stuff. I'm exaggerating, but it's got to be something substantial.
It has to be a significant position for people to get confident and say, you know what? Maybe something is happening now and he's stepping in and buying because he sees something happening in the near future, that's when it'll turn around. But for now, I think people are going to have to wait and see what happens with the selling pressure that comes out. And once that dries up, I think it'll be a good opportunity to step in and buy stock.
All right. Well, you've got a good track record, so we shall see. Tom Belesis. Well, a private lunch after public comments. A Democrat